Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live, talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynn@pghcitypaper.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
And good morning to you. It is Monday, January 11th, 2021, and all is not well, to say the least. Donald Trump is still President of the United States. The Republican Party is still in a level of, God dang it. What is the word? A level of, I hear you all screaming it. I do, and I can't hear it. Here's what I want to say. Here's what I want to say. There must be no return to normal for this country. No return to normal for our government. No return to normal for our media. No return to normal for us, because something so unbelievably horrific and abnormal and reprehensible and criminal and murderous happened at the heart of our democracy. And moving on, as you hear some people say, is not an option until there is a reckoning. America has always sidestepped reckoning. And we cannot afford to do it again. What happened at the Capitol was not, in retrospect, so shocking. You can draw a line. You can draw a line, frankly, from the beginning of our republic all the way. Watch the history unfold. Watch the reactions to seminal events. Watch the brushing away and the moving on. Watch the capitulation. We cannot afford to do that again. The last time I spoke with you was the day after. And the videos that we had seen, the personal accounts we had heard, had not poured in as they did in the last 3-4 days. And the picture we have now of what happened, and it's still very, very spotty. There has to be the most stringent investigation in an effort to find out how this went down. And again, to hold everybody who was in the least bit responsible to account. And I want to start with holding to account. And they must be the 139 members of the House of Representatives, a majority of the Republican Party in the House of Representatives, who, after blood had been spilled in the Capitol as a result of the big lie that the election had been stolen, still voted to refuse to certify the votes of you, me, voters in Arizona and Pennsylvania, and would have continued to do it for other states as well, because they were aiding and abetting Trump's big lie, all in an effort to overturn an election. 139 House Republicans continued the lie that brought this carnage to the people's house. And they should not go unpunished. 8 senators also, after, still voted to keep the lie alive, to give it some CPR, to keep it breathing, to live another day, to encourage the very people who stormed the Congress. And we are to let them continue to serve and have titles like the Honorable. We can't afford to do that. This is no time for appeasement. And appeasement is what our side does a lot, because we don't like to make, we don't like trouble. Let's just get an apology from somebody and move on. And anyone who's arguing for that is out of their cotton-picking minds and not seeing clearly how much this cancer has spread throughout the body politic. It's everywhere. It's over 30% of the country. And they have got to be pushed back. And now the Democrats have control of the White House, the Senate, and the House of Representatives. They have to play even half as rough as the Republicans have. I saw a statement by a young man who works, he's a staffer in the U.S. Capitol. And he wrote this: "It feels insane that we'll be going back to work in that building with the same people who incited and in some cases may have helped organize a deadly attack on our government. Like, I walk by these people in the hallway. What am I supposed to do?" I think they must be expelled. At the very least, they must be censured. And then come November, they must be voted out, any of them who stand for election. And yet they won't, because they come from districts where the people are supportive of their murderous insurrection. I'm very worried that, again, our media, who seem, I'm talking about mostly cable news, seem always flat-footed about sustaining a reaction. They move on. They fear their audience gets bored. They find new fish to fry. We cannot return to normal. And speaking of media, I do want to say, as I said on Thursday, but that was before I saw some of the video, the reporters who covered that literally were at risk of death by that mob. Some were attacked. If you've seen some of the video where you're inside, surrounded by that mob, it's terrifying. Did you see them beating a police officer with the American flag, with the pole and the flag, beating him and beating him? And these same people, you understand, these Trump supporters, are constantly talking about how they are on the side of the police. They killed one. They hospitalized a whole bunch of others in their love of law and order. You cannot come down hard enough. And the reality is they're still plotting more. Openly, just as they did the last time, openly. A little more difficult for them now, since some of the platforms have taken down their access to one another. But, you know, where there's a will, there's a way. They're planning a big rally on Inauguration Day. Some are planning something on the 17th. Others have another date. I forget what it is. And I have seen some indication that those who are really trying to stay ahead of all of this organizing suggest that Pittsburgh, for some reason, is one of the spots that has been targeted for some kind of action. Every state capital, and you can bet the state capitals of the states that they think rigged the vote, that would be us, Arizona, Georgia, Wisconsin, Michigan, they better have extraordinary security around their buildings. We have an insurrection on our hands, an ongoing insurrection. It wasn't a one-off thing that we all watched. And the fact that the main instigator of it is still in the White House is just amazing. They came intending to murder the vice president, hang him. Don't take my words for it, take theirs. They came with the intent of murdering Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, the vice president, and you can imagine, I guess, everybody but the 139 House Republicans and 8 senators who stood with them. We were a minute or two away from potentially them gaining hostages. Can you imagine? And we still have media outlets that are treating this like a protest gone a little awry. That is not what happened here. And at the heart of it, and this is why I started out by saying that we as a nation seem and have seemed incapable of reckoning with our sins, our reality, our history. And it has brought us to this because we never fully reckoned with our original sin of slavery. Of slavery and genocide of Native Americans and stealing of their land and all the stuff that we don't really want to talk about, of how the white Europeans took this land. Make no mistake, that mob, those murderous insurrectionists were the America, truly represented us. So that is the face of America that Black America knows, that Black America has lived with ever since it was brought here in chains. That is America. Those contorted faces of rage and privilege. That's the face that every lynched Black person saw in his or her dying moments. That's the face of America that the folks in Tulsa saw before their towns and businesses were burned to the ground. That's the face of America that countless dead Black people know. And until white America is willing to look in the mirror, see it, acknowledge it, and then clean our own house, do you think, just think of all the times you have heard smug white people when riots have broken out in Black neighborhoods, or when Black on Black crime is the topic du jour. Stop and think of how often white America tells Black America that they need to clean up their house. It's their problem. Well, I got news for you. Their problems have largely been the result of white America's problem. And that is the problem of in the blood and bone white supremacy. And that is what the Republican Party now represents quite clearly. And any effort by anyone who continues now to call themselves a Republican, is standing with a party that stands for white supremacy and against democracy. That is why there must be a reckoning. You can't let these Republicans go back to the state houses they infest and the Congress and the Senate and act like nothing has changed. We're just going to head back to normal. It cannot be allowed. And I understand that the incoming president wants and needs to be able to start giving this country a functional government again. And we should try mightily to stay out of the way as he and his cabinet does that. But that does not mean that the co-equal branch of government, the Congress, doesn't have the time to censure its own, the traitors within it. Forgive me, I have a personal thing going on, and I have a text that I have got to read. Okay, thank you. One of the things I saw as I watched some of the video, and it was just one, it wasn't the worst thing I saw, but it struck me because it was so indicative of the ignorance and privilege of these people. And it was one of the white traitors storming into the Congress. And he screamed, "This is our Capitol. We built it." And I thought, you fool, you idiot, you didn't build it. Black people built it. Enslaved black people built it. They built the White House. They built so much of this America you think you own. The level of delusion, the incessant delusion and revisionist history that has been allowed in this country throughout my lifetime, that has been taught to our children generation after generation after generation without the reckoning. And if we don't rise now, at this moment in our history, we will not survive. We will most assuredly not survive. These people have infiltrated every level of our government. I'm thinking of their deep state. Well, we've got to start realizing that there is a fifth column implanted in our legislative bodies, in our law enforcement agencies, the number of police that identify with these insurrectionists would probably blow our heads off. Yeah? The Supreme Court, I would argue, with the knowledge that one of the justices' wives paid for hundreds of the buses that brought the insurrectionists to D.C. Clarence Thomas's wife, Ginny. The Pennsylvania State House and Senate are filled with these people. Our congressional delegation reeks with them. This is no time for accepting apologies or for allowing equivocation and somehow skewed portrayals of what occurred. I have a little, and I say a little, appreciation for the fact that our Senator, Patrick Toomey, has now come out and said that he believes this president should be, yes, removed. But he also has said this: Trump has descended into a level of madness. I don't think there's any doubt, said Senator Toomey. There's none in my mind that the president's behavior after the election was wildly different than his behavior before. No, it isn't. This is the exact same guy. Are you kidding me, Pat? This is the same guy spouting the same crap, inciting the same bigots. Stoking their grievance. He was as nuts 4 years ago when your party embraced him as he is right now. So when Toomey says he has descended into a level of madness and engaged in activity that was absolutely unthinkable, that is bull. Anyone looking with clear eyes, anyone listening with open ears to what this president has done and said for the last 5 years, since the time he descended in Trump Tower and began his racist attacks on murderous Mexicans, he has sown this kind of racist division and contempt for the norms of our democracy. Very fine people on both sides. Senator Toomey, you continue to support him after that. You voted with him time and time and time and time again, and I don't get how now any of you get to jump ship and go on to the right side. I do not, for one, embrace you. And if I feel that way about Toomey, you can only imagine my rage and contempt for every Republican member of the Congress, the legislatures, every single one of them who did not break with the party when it became this fascistic horror that it is. The Republicans made their bed. They capitulated and rolled over to a guy they knew was nuts. You'll recall they called him nuts before they embraced him. They called him dangerous before, well, it looked like they had to embrace him because he was taking over the party. They have walked this country to the brink. And now they're trying to fade onto the edges and back up and express concerns and talk about time for unity and all of this. And they cannot be allowed to do so. A quote, a conservative columnist. For 5 years, Republicans let him degrade our political culture by normalizing his behavior. For 5 years, they let him wage war on our democratic norms and institutions. For 5 years, they treated his nonstop lies as a quirk of character, not to be taken seriously. For 5 years, they treated his rallies as carnivals of democracy, not as training grounds for mob rule, which is what they were. I don't know about you. I don't forgive it. We have a call. Caller, go ahead.
Hey, Lynn, it's Mike.
Hi, Mike.
Greetings from sunny St. Petersburg, Florida.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Man, you get around.
So I totally say bravo to your rant. All of that is exactly correct, and I hope that being rushed out of the Senate, huddled in corners of offices, not knowing whether this racist mob was going to come get them next, will be the impetus for the Democrats to get a spine and do something. And I don't care if it succeeds. They have to do it because it's right. Some people who are doing stuff that's right is the American Bar Association. Well, not yet, but a lot of people have
But they're going after what, Rudy's license and all these other jerks' licenses?
Cruz and Holly's, They're going after their licenses.
Right.
So
they need to be expelled by the Senate.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And then the PGA. Did you hear what the PGA did?
Yeah, they're taking some money away from Donald. And I see these things happening, yes. But you know what? Again, these are all from people quite willing to aid and abet while he had power. And they see the tide has turned, and so they start now doing the right thing. I don't credit them. I'm appreciative, I guess. You've got corporations coming out now, Marriott, I know did, saying that their political action committees will suspend all donations to any of these Republicans who voted after the riot to still question the election. Those are the kinds of things, that are good, but these corporations, they're all acting in their own self-interest at this point. They're frightened by what they let loose, by what they aided and abetted, right?
Mm-hmm.
It all seems a little late. It's all too late. I as I said, I'm happier that Toomey has said what he says, but I'll be damned if he gets a pass from me. And the same is true of all these corporations that funded these guys, knowing full well what they were saying, or the PGA or whoever it is that booked their thing into one of the Trump properties, knowing who he was and what he was. So I'm sorry, Mike, I think of them all as rats jumping ship, and they will always be rats to me.
I agree.
Okay.
But they're jumping ship.
Well, yeah, they're saving themselves.
Didn't see, which is something I didn't think we'd see. Honestly, I thought this guy was, Teflon, that nothing would happen to him. And it brings me such joy to know that a bully, no longer has his Twitter account to abuse people. Even if it's just temporary, even if they find a workaround, they've taken one of the weapons away from the bully.
One. a big one.
Nothing makes me, oh my God, I'm so happy about that. Now, should they have done it earlier? Yes.
I mean,
Double standard? Yeah.
Right. So what is it? Yeah. Think of, would Trump have been able to do what he did if Twitter, and of course Twitter could say, we couldn't take the president off. But when he was, I guess people had to see this is not the end result. This is not what they wanted. They wanted more. They wanted, as I said, Pence hanging from a gallows and Pelosi, dead. They didn't get quite what they wanted, but all those people and they're still there. They're still there. And they're still believing it. Because that, again, is this ugly, ugly part of America. If one more person, and this is what they're all saying, and including Biden, this is not America. Bullshit. This is America. If it ain't America, who the hell is it?
Yeah, Americans are only good at two things. One, believing we're exceptional, and two, denying that our government or democracy only exists here, right? That there aren't other democratic nations in the world that are a million times better than ours. We're great at those two things. And
they're both delusional. They're both, again, delusional, and they're delusional because we've allowed that. We've nurtured that kind of delusion. We've treated these delusions with respect. I mean, the whole Confederacy thing, the fact that it was only in the last year that we finally sort of, got the Confederate flag to stop being thought of as a respectable object. I don't know, Mike.
Power does not relinquish its grip easily. And the white man has had the power since the nation was created. And it is going to be a slow, ugly pull to get that power from the white man, straight white man.
Well, they are willing to clearly kill and murder and take down our government to keep that power. And we damn well better be willing to be just as passionate in our country's defense. And that's what I fear, that we are not. There was this new Republican congresswoman from Colorado. She's known for always carrying a gun. And she had said she was going to carry a gun into the chambers. And she has been accused of live tweeting the fact that Nancy Pelosi had been moved she was live tweeting. Here's her tweet. The speaker has been removed from the chambers. And there is some sense. You could say, well, that's true. But a lot of people, knowing this woman, are thinking she was telling the people who were coming for her.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
That was the plan. The plan wasn't to burn the joint down.
No, the plan
was to kill Pelosi and blackmail Pence into undoing an election. That was the plan.
Or hang him.
Yeah.
Incredible.
But not unhistoric if you look at other nations and how they've fallen. This is not.
No, exactly. But that's why if people know history.
But they don't.
This is why, but all throughout Trump's administration, you kept seeing these red flags. We were looking like, hello, this looks like exactly what, this was what happened in the late 20s, early 30s Germany. This is what, and I'm no great student of history. How come I saw it? How come I knew it? For that matter, how come I knew there was going to be real trouble in Washington, D.C. that day? And what the hell accounts for the lack of any security at the Capitol, even after the president said, and march on it. They had about 45 minutes from the time he said that to the time they could have gotten someone over there. So I'm afraid that this whole thing, again, the fifth columnist, that there are people at very high levels in our government that aided and abetted this.
Of course there were. And
but how do we find them? How do we find them?
And I know the reason you know this, and I know this, and the majority of Americans do not know this, because you read, and because I read, and because I'm an engaged citizen. Most Americans want to go to Walmart, get their shit, go home, play video games, and not care about what's happening to their government. They think that it's always been this way. It will always be this way.
Well,
all you need to do is look at people walking around without masks, going to parties, to see that we live in a country of denial.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm glad my assets are liquid. Sorry. I know that sounds terrible, but.
Well, you know what? Speaking of assets, you see, the stock market opened, and guess whose stock plummeted? Twitter. Twitter. Because they knocked him, their number one guy, off. Do you believe it?
Yeah,
Twitter.
All the hillbillies. Yeah.
Unbelievable. All right, Mike, thank you.
Sure. Bye.
Bye. Chuck writes, yesterday I saw Jake Tapper interview Joe Manchin. If you think the Democrats now have a majority in the Senate, think again. Tapper tested Manchin on the major Democratic platform issues, gun control, environment, stimulus checks. He was against all of it. He might as well be a Republican. For every Senate vote, Manchin will be the, yeah. And we have, I think I said this, the power now in that Congress lies with, right, the Manchins. When you don't have a really strong majority, and we do not, frankly, in either house now, it is, well, little factions can have extreme power. But I would counter the Manchin thing with the hopes that some Republicans might disavow their party now. You know, the Republican Party, even after this, still, Trump called into the Republican National Committee. It was having some annual meeting or something. What was it? Thursday. This is after the riot, the insurrection, the blood, the death, the horror. He called in and spoke to all of these Republican representatives from all over the country, the ones who, you know, who are the heads of the party apparatus, the county apparatus, and they cheered him. It is a party that is the enemy of this country. It is a party made up of people who are enemies of this country. It is a party that should have zero respect and no power. And it is a party that we need to hold accountable. Norma writes, I noticed among the rioters, a couple of idiots were wearing 6MWNE t-shirts. Yeah, I saw that too. What does that mean? Well, I'll tell you what it means. 6M, 6 million, W were, N, not E, enough. 6 million were not enough. Lest my equating this with the history of incipient Nazism in Germany is not spot on. Or how about the guy wearing the Camp Auschwitz t-shirt? Yeah. Make no mistake, these people have been energized by Donald Trump and the Republican obeisance and acquiescence to him. And they're ready for whatever. You can see that now. 6 million weren't enough. My brother's response to the 6 million weren't enough. He said, well, I guess the good side is at least they're not Holocaust deniers. Jesus Christ. So, I mean, it makes it clear that to these people, Jews are not white. Yeah. What do we got? Yeah. Okay. I just have a few more things I just absolutely want to get in here. Again, rats jumping ship. Wall Street Journal calling on the president to resign. They aided and abetted this guy. That's Rupert Murdoch's Wall Street Journal. So with the Wall Street Journal, he urges Trump to resign, and with Fox News, he keeps on feeding the insurrection. Lindsey Graham, enough is enough. Give me a break. Mulvaney, who served this guy. Shocked. This is not the same person I knew. Well, I got news for all of them. It's the same person all of us knew and recognized. And just think for a minute of what the Republicans did when some Americans died in Benghazi. Just remember. In fact, they're still, I think, at it. That is how dogged we must be in getting to the bottom of this. And they don't equate in the least. This is amazing. And this is America. I know our capacity for attention and conviction is not the strongest. It just isn't. We've proven it over and over again. And if we don't rise to take this on now and keep at it for years and years and years. I mean, I don't know what we do. You start seeing how in countries that are going through this kind of extreme trial, that when one side gets an upper hand, as we have now, that the desire to purge is strong, and I have that desire now. But I'm also a realist, and we cannot purge 85 million Americans. We're not going to do what other countries have done, put people like them in reprogramming camps, right? But you know, you sort of want to, and I'll admit to it. You sort of want to. You can't reason with them, that we know. because they are incessantly and emphatically delusional. And they are fed constant reinforcement by Fox News, by Rush Limbaugh, and all the others. And that's who they listen to. And I'm not sure what we do with them. I don't know what we do with them, because they have gotten more and more and more deranged. They have sent QAnon believers into the halls of Congress. I find it heartening that a lot of local newspapers are calling for the heads of these insurrectionists, these aiders and abettors. The two largest newspapers in Wisconsin have called on Senator Johnson to either resign or be expelled, and also with their congressional representative who also voted to overturn our vote. I'm not aware of a paper here doing that. Has a paper here done that? Because the Republican congressional delegation is a absolute embarrassment, outrageous embarrassment to the state. Brooke says maybe you addressed this and I missed it, but will the inauguration continue to be outside on the steps of the Capitol? I don't think anyone would blame Biden for having a private ceremony in the Oval Office. I don't think an outside inauguration is a good idea. I'm inclined to to agree with you, but here's the other part. I believe it is still going to be outside. I believe that the security will be as intense as the security was absent on Wednesday. I think they want to continue so that they don't give the insurrectionists a victory by appearing to be afraid of them, by appearing to be cowed. And I understand that completely. So God bless them. I think Joe Biden and the others that will be there need to do it. My only fear is they are trusting in the security of Donald Trump's government. The last act of Donald Trump's government to secure the inauguration as Donald Trump skulks away. I don't know, but my heart will be in my throat throughout that inauguration, and maybe they'll decide optics be damned. Let's safeguard this and hold it elsewhere. I don't know, but at this point, I do believe that they're going ahead. And what we learned, Barbara's just sending me something. I mean, I know what we are learning about the calls for help from the Capitol Police to the Army. Army Secretary Ryan McCarthy begging for help and being turned down time after time after time. 6 times they were denied. And the head of the Capitol Police, who has since resigned, has said in a warning, because he's the one who was calling for help and getting none. He said this: if they don't get their act together with physical security, it's going to happen again. And of course it will, because you see the other side fully intending to have it happen again. I think for a lot of Americans, it's hard to get our heads around this because this is not yet supposed to happen in America. But it is happening in America. And we have seen the slow daily build up to it, with a president showing every sign of a would-be authoritarian, using all the tricks that every authoritarian has ever used, going after the press as the enemy of the people, going after his own government, trying to sow distrust in every institution, throwing lie after lie after lie at his minions, numbing the population for 4 years. And the acquiescence of the party he now owns. I don't know what happens to these Republicans. As I said, I haven't given them any credit for a long time, except credit for destruction. They cannot be treated with respect. I mean, even Colin Powell, he has said he can't be a Republican. And what we need to see is all of them. We need to see the sitting members of the Republican side of the aisle who did not vote with the rioters after the riot. We need to see them. Mitt Romney, are you listening to me? We need to see them. Patrick Toomey, are you listening to me? We need to see them hand in their Republican membership and create their own caucus, because the Republican Party doesn't exist anymore other than as an insurrection, other than as a clear and present danger to our country. And anyone who votes for him should be shunned. Shunned. After this, they should be shunned and shamed. And we better be tough, incessantly tough, and unafraid. And as I said, play it as half as hard as the Republicans play when they have power. I'll leave you with this, a brilliant headline from the Times of India about what happened in Washington, D.C. The Times of India, an English language newspaper in India. The headline was coup, C-O-U-P, Ku Klux Klan. And there, in 3 words, they got it right. They nailed it. This is the America we like to sweep under the rug. And as Black America will tell us, they know this America very, very well. And that we, white Americans, are just waking up to the terror and the lunacy and the ugliness of it. Well, welcome to America. Ku Klux Klan. Be safe. I'll talk to you tomorrow.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.